And welcome aboard, and thank you for viewing PC Pilot Training. Today we're going to be talking about the startup and shutdown procedures of a Cessna 172. After you do your outside pre-flight and you hop in the aircraft ready to start up, I like to go through a flow. And in this aircraft, as we see it, I'll start over on the right, move to the left, and then follow it up with the checklist after startup. So we want to make sure our fuel is on both, that it's not set to either wing, but on both. Fuel shutoff valve on this aircraft needs to be pushed in, this lever pushed in or open. You want to have the elevator trim set for takeoff, flaps set to 0. And as you can tell, our mixture and throttle are pulled all the way out. This is going to be a cold start, as if the airplane had sat overnight. So we're going to push the mixture all the way in and the throttle in about 1/2 inch. As we move over, alternate static air is pushed all the way in. Avionics master is off. We're going to check the circuit breakers, make sure they're all pushed in, not popped out. As far as the lights go, just on this initial startup, we're just going to have the beacon on. Anytime the engine is running, it's required to have this beacon in the on position. So go ahead and turn our battery on, and we'll come up and check our volts. Well, we have 24 volts, 24 volt battery, looking good. Now, before we come over and we start up this engine, we want to make sure we're clear, there's nobody around the aircraft. So definitely always look around the airplane, and then even pop your window open, pop your door open, and yell out, "Clear prop." And you want to make sure nobody is around in front of you or even behind you where you may kick rocks back. As we turn the key to the start position, we're going to have one hand on the key, the other hand over here on the throttle. Alright, let's go ahead and start it up. Feet on the brakes. And start up. Run about 1,000 RPM. Just under. Then the first thing we want to do is come over and check our oil pressure. We want to make sure that we have some positive oil pressure. As far as the temperature goes, it may take a little bit for the temperature to come up. Then we'll just come straight down here. Turn our alternator on, and as you can tell, we enunciator lights are now out, and we're a 28 volt system now. I like to come down at this point in the daytime, even turn my nav lights on. We'll turn the avionics on. Coming over at this point, I may even adjust the mixture for the most optimal lean setting. Verify again, flaps are up, trim is set for takeoff, fuel is on both. Now I'm going to come over and do my radios. Set up the radios for the ATIS, tower, clearance, Unicom, whatever it may be for the flight. The squawk code on the transponder, whatever you may need. We'll set that up. Then we'll come over and then we'll check our flight instruments. I like going left to right, top to bottom. So, 0 indication on the airspeed indicator. Attitude indicator. You want to make sure that your artificial airplane is even with the horizon. If you're flying a tailwheel aircraft, it's a little bit different technique. And just follow your flight instructor's technique on that one. Set your altimeter, in this case 2992, showing the field elevation. Turn coordinator, airplane is level and the ball is centered. Directional gyro, you want to make sure it's lined up with your compass. If you need to set it, go ahead and do so at this time. Vertical speed indicator, and whatever you're reading in the aircraft sitting still is pretty much going to be your 0 indication in flight. Right now we're reading 0, so that's what we can expect. And then the RPM, and we're still pulling right around 1,000, just under 1,000 RPM. We want to make sure we log the hob hours at this point, if not before. Alright, now we're going to pull out the checklist, and we'll go through the finish up the before start and go through the before taxi checklist and make sure we didn't forget anything in our flows. Alright, that completes the basic startup procedures of a Cessna 172. Now let's talk about the shutdown. The shutdown procedure, as soon as you come into the chocks or you're on the ramp where you want to park, you're ready to shut everything down. Again, I kind of go through a flow and then go through the checklist. I like to set up the radios for the next flight. ATIS, Unicom, clearance ground, whatever it may be that I expect to use first, I'll set up. Transponder, I'll move to the make sure it's in a standby position if it's not already. And again, I want to set the airplane up for the next flight. So fuel is going to be on both. Fuel shutoff valve pushed all the way in. Elevator trim set for takeoff. Flaps are 0. Now to shut the engine down, we're going to pull this mixture back. But before we do, we want to take the avionics out of the equation here. So let's turn the avionics master off. Now we can pull that mixture all the way back. And just waiting for the engine to shut down. Alright, now we have the engine shut down. Continue moving over to the left. Nav lights, beacon off. Battery alternator off. And then the key in the off position. And I like removing the key. And as long as I'm around the airplane, I will set the key right up here on the dash, just so that both myself and anybody else around the airplane knows the key's not in the ignition or the magneto switches. Now we're ready to install the control lock. Go through the shutdown checklist, make sure we didn't forget anything, and that pretty much completes the shutdown portion of a Cessna 172. Again, best thing to do is follow the guidance of your local professional flight instructor. And we want to thank you again for viewing PC Pilot Training. And as always, fly safe.